They say love is an ocean without shores, and Ranjha was its first traveler. Many lovers have passed through the world, but none like Ranjha, who worshipped love as if it were prayer itself. Ranjha, whose real name was Heer Ranjha, was a handsome young man born of the soil of Punjab, eyes glowing with the light of love that destiny itself had placed there. He belonged to a respected family of Takht Hazara, the youngest of 4 brothers, the most beloved and yet the most unfortunate. He often said, "I was not born for the world's struggles. My heart seeks an unseen fragrance." When his father passed away, his elder brothers divided the inheritance. One took the fields, another the oxen and carts. And when Ranjha's turn came, they mocked him, saying, "You are good for nothing, a dreamer, a lover. What will you do with land?" So he received a small patch of soil, but his heart was never bound to it. He looked at the fields, then raised his face to the sky and said, "O Lord, perhaps my sustenance lies in another land. Perhaps my destiny is written by another hand." That night, the moonlight was soft, the wind silent along the riverbank. Ranjha picked up his flute, the same flute whose tune could enchant the birds of his village. As he played, a melody full of longing drifted through the air. The cattle stopped grazing, women paused at their doorways, and children forgot their games. Ranjha's flute spoke a language no words could ever capture. But something ached within him. He thought, "This soil is not mine, this house is not my home. I must go. Somewhere someone waits for me." So one morning, as the sun's first ray kissed the river's surface, Ranjha left his village behind. Only a flute, a cloth on his shoulder, and a heart thirsty for love's unknown dream. He walked on, through fields, along rivers, across sands and shrubs. At every stop, people asked, "Where you going, young man?" And he smiled, replying, "Wherever love calls, that's where one must go." After several days, Ranjha entered the land of Jang Sayal, the very place where destiny had hidden his light in the form of Heer. The air in Jang was unlike any other. The earth smelled of sweetness. The breeze carried a prayer, as the creation itself wished that love might blossom once again. One afternoon, when the sun was soft, Ranjha reached the fields of Chachik Sayal, Heer's father. There were herds of beautiful cows and buffaloes, watched over by many shepherds. Ranjha, weary from travel, sat under a tree and began to play his flute. That sound, which could make rivers pause, echoed through the fields and reached the palace. Heer Sayal, the princess of Jang, a beauty sculpted by the Creator himself, stood in her balcony. When she heard that melody, time seemed to stop. What kind of flute is this, one that plays within the heart itself? She turned to her maid Nikki and said, "Go see who plays such music. My heart tells me he is no ordinary shepherd." Nikki ran and soon returned. "My lady, he is a stranger. Sits beneath a tree. Light glows on his face. Looks like a prince disguised as a wanderer." Heer smiled softly. "Princes do not play the flute, but one whose music carries truth stand above all princes." The next day, Heer herself went to the fields. Ranjha was sitting among the cattle, playing his flute. That was the first time they saw each other, the moment 2 destinies met. When Ranjha lifted his gaze and saw her, the flute fell silent on its own. Their eyes spoke a language no tongue could utter. Time froze. The air turned fragrant. A faint smile played on Heer's lips. Reverence and wonder filled Ranjha's eyes. Heer asked, "O shepherd, what is your name? And why have you come to this land as a stranger?" Ranjha replied, "My name is Ranjha. I left my village behind. By destiny's command, I came here. It feels as if this land itself was calling me." Heer said, "If fate has brought you here, perhaps my father's herds are meant to be under your care." And thus, Heer made Ranjha the keeper of her fields. But the bond did not remain only about cattle. Slowly, their hearts began to draw near. Every morning, Heer would visit the fields, speak with Ranjha, and whenever he played the flute, dreams would settle into her eyes. The scent of love spread through the village. People whispered, "The daughter of the Sayals has fallen for the shepherd." But when a heart is sold into love's hands, what fear can worldly tongues bring? One day Heer said to Ranjha, "Ranjha, your melodies have entered my soul. Even the thought of parting brings pain. And Ranjha replied, Heer, I was lost in your eyes long ago. My heart, my soul, all of me belongs to you. Thus their love was born, pure, simple, and profound. Every note of Ranjha's flute hid Heer's name, and every night Heer smiled in her chamber as she heard it drift through the air. As Wary Shah once said, where love enters, reason takes its leave. And indeed, both were now lost to the world. Nights felt long, and days passed like dreams. Ranjha would sit by the river under the moon and whisper, "O moon, go tell her." Ranjha wakes for her. But destiny had written trials in their story. Here's uncles and brothers sensed the fragrance of this forbidden love. Pride and anger flared within them. How can a daughter of the Sayals give her heart to a shepherd? But Heer, within herself, said, I am not Sayals, I am Ranjha's Heer. In the last watch of the night, when moonlight spread across the rooftops, Heer would come out, and Ranjha would play his flute. She would whisper, Ranjha, play, for sleep has left me. And he would answer, Heer, the flute is just an excuse. The real melody is your name. Their love took on a mystical hue. They no longer spoke through words. They conversed through silence. The world faded away, and only Heer and Ranjha remained. Two souls, one devotion. They say when love matures, the world turns into an enemy. And Heer and Ranjha's love had now become that flame whose light could be seen in every heart. In the fields of Jang, whenever Ranjha played his flute, the melody went straight into Heer's heart. Heer would be inside her palace, but her soul lingered by the riverside. The world called her the daughter of the Sayals, but she herself called herself Ranjha's Heer. Their love was no longer secret. The shepherds, the field workers, the village women, all knew that Heer and Ranjha's hearts had become one. One day, this news reached Heer's uncle, Kaido. Kaido had a black heart and a venomous tongue. He envied Heer's beauty and resented Ranjha's passion. One day, he went to Chuchik Sayal's court and said, O chief, your daughter has brought shame upon the family. She has fallen in love with a mere cowherd. Wrinkles of anger appeared on Chuchik Sayal's forehead. Rumors spread to the village. The honor of the Sayals is in danger. Heer's mother, who once felt proud of her daughter, now lived in fear. Heer soon learned that the world had turned against them. That night, she went up to the palace terrace. In the moonlight, Ranjha sat waiting. Softly, she said, Ranjha, our love has caught the world's eye. People are whispering. The family is furious. Ranjha replied, Heer, love was never meant to be easy. Those who remain steadfast are the ones who succeed. If the world is against us, then God is with us. Heer listened, but her heart trembled. The fear of society always lingers in a woman's heart. She looked toward the sky as if praying, O Creator of love, give us strength to pass this test with honor. Days went by, but enmity grew stronger. One day, when Heer was in the fields, her brother saw her speaking to Ranjha. Furious, he shouted, Aren't you ashamed? Sitting with a herdsman? We are Sayals, not common folk. Tears rolled down Heer's face, but she stayed silent. Some kinds of love leave you speechless. Ranjha saw everything, but said nothing. In the battlefield of love, lovers are often helpless. Chuchik Sayal locked Heer inside the palace. Guards were placed at the doors. Her servants were changed. Ranjha would come every night and play his flute outside, but the sound could no longer pierce the palace walls. At night, Heer would come to the terrace, but Ranjha was lost in the darkness of sorrow. He held the flute, but could not play a single note, because a flute only sings when there is hope, and hope had vanished from Heer's eyes. Soon, Heer's marriage was arranged. Chuchik Sayal declared, Enough of this disgrace. She must be married into a noble house to save the family's honor. Drums echoed across the village. Relatives arrived in joy. Kaido was overjoyed, but Heer's heart was lifeless. She said to her friend Nikki, Is this what love ends with? I harmed no one, yet my fate became my punishment. Nikki wiped her tears and replied, My lady, the world never understands love. Only God does. Meanwhile, Ranjha sat by the riverbank, driven mad by separation. He forgot food and sleep. Dust covered his face. Emptiness filled his eyes. People whispered, "Is this the same Ranjha who once played the flute?" Now his flute was silent. One night, Ranjha looked up at the sky and cried out, "O Lord, you placed here in my heart. Why are you taking her away? Is love a sin?" That night, he fainted by the river. When he woke, a dervish stood before him, a man of light with a staff in his hand. The dervish said, "O traveler of love, your trial has just begun. To walk the path of love, you must kill your ego and purify your soul." Ranjha asked, "What should I do?" The dervish replied, "Leave the world behind. Let your body die and let your spirit live. Only then will you find true love." That was the moment when Ranjha began his journey, from a lover to a mystic. He let his hair loose, smeared ashes on his forehead, took a staff in his hand, and said, "Ranjha is dead. Now only the Jogi mystic lives." Heer's wedding preparations were completed. The palace was filled with music and laughter. But Heer's heart mourned in silence. She picked up the Quran from her bed, pressed it to her chest, and whispered, "God is my witness. I have loved only Ranjha. If anyone can change my destiny, it is my Creator, not man." On her wedding day, she sat silently. Her hands were adorned with henna, but her heart bled within. The hall was full of color, yet her face was lifeless. As the drums grew louder, Ranjha broke his flute by the riverbank. He said, "This flute belongs to the Heer the world has stolen from me." That same night, as Heer's bridal procession began, clouds gathered in the sky. Rain fell, as though nature itself was mourning. Heer looked back one last time toward the fields of Jang, the place where Ranjha once played his flute. In her heart, she whispered, "Ranjha, I will always be yours, even if the world changes our names." Wary Shah wrote, "True love never dies. It leaves the body and lives forever in the soul." And thus, Heer and Ranjha's love became not a tale of bodies, but a story of immortal souls. They say when a person burns completely in the fire of love, from that Ashad Jogi, a wandering mystic, is born. That is what happened to Ranjha. Heer's separation tore his heart apart. His body remained human, but his soul turned into that of a saint. By the riverside, where he once played his flute, he now sat in silence. The wind would blow dust across his face, but the storm within him could not be seen by anyone. Days passed. His face grew pale, and his eyes burned with strange light. One day, Ranjha tore his clothes, smeared ash on his forehead, took a staff in his hand, and said, "Ranjha is no more. The Jogi is born. Here is my worship, and love is my religion." He rose from the riverbank and began walking through forests, valleys, and deserts. In the scorching sun by day and the cold wind by night, he wandered endlessly, but the Jogi neither tired nor stopped. In every village, people would see him and whisper, "Who is this madman who asks every traveler the same question? Has anyone seen Heer Sayal?" Some would say, "No, holy man." Some would say, "Perhaps she was the daughter of the Sayals of Jang." And whenever he heard the word Jang, Ranjha's heart would tremble. One day, as he wandered through the wilderness, he reached a shrine. There sat an old saint, a face radiant with divine light, eyes full of wisdom. Ranjha fell at his feet and said, "Father, I am searching for Heer, but my heart is weary." The saint smiled and said, "My son, love is not easy. He who enters love must first learn to die. You are still alive. That is why your pain remains. Go, become a true Jogi. Burn away your ego. Break the idol of the self. Then perhaps God will show you his reflection in the face of Heer." Ranjha kissed his feet. The saint touched his forehead with ash, placed earrings of renunciation in his ears, and said, "Go. You are now Jogi Ranjha. Let love be your God and the search your worship." And so Ranjha became a Jogi. On his tongue were both Om and Allah. Peace glowed on his face, fire burned in his heart, and in his eyes, only Heer. He wandered from village to village, asking every woman, every shepherd, every traveler, "Have you seen Heer?" Some laughed at him, others pitied him, but the Jogi no longer cared for the world. Years passed. At last, Fate led his feet back toward Jang Sayao. As he walked the old paths, the scent of the earth changed. The river was the same, the trees were the same, but the air carried sorrow. Near Jang, he stopped. His heartbeat quickened. He thought to himself, is Heer still alive? Or was she only a dream? At that moment, Nikki, Heer's old friend, came to the river to fetch water. Ranjha recognized her, but stayed silent. Nikki looked closely and said, "Oh, Jogi, your face looks familiar. Where you come from?" Ranjha replied, "I come from Takht Hazara, searching for Heer." Tears filled Nikki's eyes. "Oh, Ranjha, you are alive? Heer too lives, but only in body. Her heart died long ago. She lives in her husband's house, but her soul is still yours. Every day she comes to this river, hoping to hear the sound of your flute again." Hearing this, Ranjha fell to the ground. Tears soaked the earth beneath him. He cried, "O Lord, you have brought me once again to Heer's land. If I cannot see her now, then breath itself is useless." Nikki comforted him and said, "Tomorrow morning I will tell Heer that a Jogi has come, one who speaks the language of her flute." The next morning, Heer came to the riverside. The Jogi sat there, his face covered in dust, but his eyes full of recognition. Heer saw him, but her heart could not believe it. Softly, she said, "Are you truly my Ranjha?" The Jogi answered, "No, Heer, Ranjha is dead. Only the Jogi remains. But in his every breath, your name still lives." Heer's legs trembled. She stepped forward and took his hands. "Ranjha, I lost everything waiting for you, but my heart is still yours." That meeting felt like a silent prayer between heaven and earth. For a few moments, time stopped. The river's waves stood still. The birds fell silent. They sat together in silence for a while. Then Heer spoke. "Ranjha, I can't live without you anymore. I have seen my husband's house and my family's honor, but found no peace anywhere. Let's go to some forest where there are no names, no identities, only us." Ranjha replied, "Heer, love cannot hide by running away. If God wills, our love shall triumph here, on the very soil where it was born." That day, they vowed never to part again. Nikki promised to keep their secret safe, but the world was still the same, poisonous and full of envy. Kaido, the same enemy, discovered their secret once more. He told Heer's brothers that Jogi is actually Ranjha, and he meets Heer every day by the river. The house erupted in rage once again. Heer was accused of shame. Plots were made to kill Ranjha. But by God's mercy, a softness entered Chachik Sayao's heart. He said, "If their love is true, then perhaps it is God's will." So Chachik Sayao decided that Heer and Ranjha should be married. Joy spread throughout the village. Heer and Ranjha wept, as though the burden of years of sorrow had finally been lifted. That night, when they raised their hands in prayer, Ranjha said, "O Lord, bless this love you yourself created." And Heer said, "O Creator, protect us now from separation, for we have reached the limit of patience." Lamps were lit by the river. The flute played again. But this time, there was less pain and more gratitude in its melody. It seemed as though love had finally triumphed. But fate's story was not yet complete.